Greetings. Today's video is going to be something a little bit different. I'm going to get personal. I'm going to tell some truths about my life. And in a weird way, I'm kind of inspired by Chadwick Boseman passing away a few days ago, where we found out that he had basically been living with colon cancer. And he'd still been making all these movies. He was under a lot of stress, a lot of pain. He'd had surgeries, he'd had times where he had to recover, and yet he still put out a marvelous bit of work that some actors don't get to do their entire lifetimes. And one of those things that it kind of proved is that you might have problems in your world, but you can still end up doing some good things, but you still have to go through the problems. And so I'm going to basically share some of the stuff that I've had to deal with over the last year that not many people know about. Of course there's some who do, but most people don't know about it, and how I feel like I've come through it. So it's a story. Hopefully it ends with a happier ending. We shall find out. So the first thing I want to talk about is that I am now divorced. I was married for 24 years. Last August I got served with divorce papers. My wife had actually left 6 months earlier, and a couple of weeks ago the divorce was finalized on the exact same date that I received the papers a year earlier. So that kind of thing is weird to happen. So it's over. I never ended up having to go to court. I won't say that it didn't have a little bit of acrimony, but it wasn't necessarily between us. It was between our lawyers, although some things happened that I'm not going to bring up. Let's just say that it was stressful. It was stressful for many reasons, and some of them I'll get back to in a little bit. But one of those reasons is because of the second thing I want to talk about, which is my mother. I have not hidden the fact that my mother has dementia, and right now I'm basically a full-time caregiver. It doesn't mean I don't try to do some other things, but mom is, well, mom is my job. And it's hard when you're taking care of someone like that, because unlike children, and I gotta face the fact, mom most of the time acts like a child, but she's going in the other direction. You can teach a child something. You pretty much can't teach someone with dementia anything. What you can do, if you're lucky, is you can kind of form a pattern so that they get used to a certain thing happening a certain way, and as long as nothing changes, then you're gonna be okay in a certain degree. So basic thing says you try to get your mother up or your parent up at the same time. You wash them the same way. You feed them pretty much the same way. You give them the same kind of stimulus that you can. You put them to bed around the same way or same time, and you just kind of go along your business. Now, what mine also involved was my mother was going to a place called Silver Fox, which I call a senior center. Some people call it adult daycare, whatever. Where my mother goes, they actually have activities for her. And she was doing that 3 times a week. And then that got messed up, and, COVID came. And COVID came, and suddenly mom was in the house for basically 7 straight weeks. I did pop her in the car one time when we went downtown to the bakery thinking, mom would like to get out of the house. Turns out mom didn't want to get out of the house. And she developed this thing during the time period where we were in the house where suddenly she was scared to take the stairs. She was scared to go down the steps. And me trying to coerce her was a battle, because you can't yell. I mean, they're scared. Mom's scared of the steps. What's yelling going to do? And you can sit there and try to coerce, and maybe I'd get lucky and she would finally take that step, and then she would slide all the way to the right, but she would get a foot down. And it's only 2 steps, but the first step is like a deep step, so she's really scared of that one. She's scared of the other one also, but it's a small step. So I got to a point where I basically have to kind of pull her down, which scares her half to death. It scares me too, because mom's around 200 pounds. I weigh more than 200, but I weigh way less than I did a couple of years ago. So luckily I'm still strong enough to be able to do that. It's not preferable. I have to wear thick clothing now when I do that, because she's been known to bite, and it hurts, because they're not all her real teeth. So this is something else I have to deal with. I have to deal with, of all things, my mother is one of those people with dementia who sometimes has forgotten how to go to the bathroom. So you hear a lot of people say that they had a parent with memory issues and they were just using the bathroom everywhere and they never knew when it was going to happen. I got the reverse. Sometimes it could take my mother 25 to 30 minutes if she's going to do anything at all. So I have found one of my joys, which is really the stupidest thing to say, is being able to get stuff into her so that she will go to the bathroom. And I mean both ways. You wouldn't think that that's something you would forget, but it happens. I'm going to tell y'all, like I said, telling some truths, but I'm going to get to that one later on. So mom is at that point where during that 7 to 8 week period, she really kind of declined. Fastest decline that I've seen in her in the 3.5 years she's been with me. I think because when she goes to Silver Fox, they do all these activities, they talk to her all day long. They don't let her watch TV. There's enough people there for that. Whereas here, I don't know how to really engage her in anything. Every once in a while we talk, but it's me basically talking or her saying whatever it is she's saying, and I don't understand her, and she doesn't understand me, except for when I say, would you like some dessert? Uh-huh. And that's the only one she really understands, because if I say they want lunch, she may say, uh-huh, and I will put the lunch in front of her. She just stares at it. And then I have to kind of feed her a little bit until she gets to eating, and sometimes she still won't eat. You cannot force anybody to eat anything. And yet she hasn't really lost any weight. What you gonna do? So, that's mom. Next thing is consulting. One of those things that happens, of course, when you're a full-time caregiver is it's hard to leave the house for work. I'm a consultant. I mainly worked with hospitals. I worked with hospitals across the country. I would fly in. Sometimes I'd stay for weeks at a time. Can't do that anymore. What am I going to do with mom for that kind of time period? I certainly am not going to pay for someone to stay in the house for weeks at a time with her. And, that kind of defeats the purpose of working. That's kind of expensive. And that takes a whole lot of trust. I don't know that I'm necessarily that trusting. So, I try to convince hospital people that I can do most of my work from home. And I really can. Why do I know this? Because most places I've gone, unless I've gone as an interim leader of some type, basically they give me an office and I got a desk and they say, okay, here you are. Do what you need from here. And I spend most of the time in there by myself or sitting in a place by myself. If I need to go talk to someone, I can pop up and go see people wherever I need to. But I can do that on the phone. Look, I can do that on the phone. I got Zoom. We've got Get Conference. In other words, I don't need to be anywhere for probably longer than maybe 2 days a month, just because sometimes you need to be on hand. But I'm talking to a group that's kind of rigid as far as change comes, which is really strange because healthcare has changed a lot. Some things haven't changed all that much, but healthcare itself has changed a lot. And you would think that me working from home ends up saving them on expenses. They don't have to find an office place for me. They don't have to worry about if I'm getting a flu shot or not, because I ain't getting no flu shot, because I'm a contractor. So, still, there you go. Let's talk about the house. I got the house. That doesn't usually happen a lot with men when you're going through a divorce, but I got the house. I got the house because of my mother. We needed a place. And my former did not want the house. So, for a while there, I didn't think she wanted me to have it either, but in the end, I got the house. But you know what? 97% of the stuff in this house is stuff she brought into this house. And the house is packed. I don't have that much stuff, but the house is packed. So now, slowly, I have to start decluttering the house. I'm not really feeling as much pressure about that as I was before, because I just wasn't sure what I could get rid of, what were going to be the final terms. You have to have this agreement signed, and I just didn't know how that was going to go. And it went better than I could have expected, so now I just have to slowly declutter. I had already done the kitchen. I'd done the dining room, but those are the easy rooms. I had done the room that is now Mom's room, because it used to be one of her rooms. Basically, I only had 2 rooms. The rest of the house was hers. And it's a 5-bedroom house and basically a full basement. So there's a whole lot of space. But, I'll slowly do it. I will just figure things out, move some things around, and it'll get done. But it's a massive job, and there's a lot of things I just don't know. This is way out of my field of expertise. Luckily, I've got a neighbor who knows something about design. Luckily, I got another neighbor across the street who knows something about, power washing the house and doing some other things. But there's a lot I need to do. So, there's that. Now, of course, we got COVID. Now, I'll tell you the truth. This is probably the easiest thing I personally had to deal with out of all the things that have gone on. Because I'm an only child. My mother was an only child. If I didn't need food, I could have stayed in the house. I share a backyard with a major grocery store. I have Burger King and McDonald's and my favorite pizza place and the Japanese place that are all less than 2 minutes away. And some of those places deliver. So I pretty much had everything that I needed. But, you like being out. I liked going out to lunch. I liked the times where I go out to breakfast. It was rare that I could go out to dinner, but it happened occasionally. But, COVID was the easiest thing for me. I don't know that it was so easy on Mom, but it was easy on me. And then we have Black Lives Matter. Boy. I thought that we had things that were really bad 4 years ago because of Ferguson, Missouri. But it just keeps coming. The hits just keep coming. And I live in a very conservative neighborhood. How do I know that? Because it's election season. Even though it hasn't happened yet this year, pretty much more than half the houses on this street are going to have the orange guys sign in their front yard. I know where they are. My next door neighbor on one side is going to have it. I don't know about the guy on the other side. I think he's kind of conservative, but I also think that he is one of those kind of guys who's not overly political. I know my neighbor across the street, who's a new neighbor, is, she's for Biden. I am too. More because I hate the other guy. But still, this is tough. And since then, oh my goodness, you've been hearing about shootings all over the place. We had another guy shot last week 7 times in the back in front of his children, walking away unarmed. We still haven't had the killers of Breonna Taylor, who are law enforcement. They have not been charged with anything. This is not easy. It is not easy. LeBron James said that, black people are scared of white people. We're scared we're going to die. We're scared of the police. I don't want to go that far with it. Have I had moments? Yes, I have had moments. But you know what? I'm in my 60s. I'm not scared of the police. Am I a little wary? Yeah. Do I trust them? I'm going to do a different video about that. About trusting police or not. And it's going to be, I'm not even going to say. I'm just going to say that you're a little more cautious. I've had moments where I've had anxiety. I've had moments where I basically shut down. I didn't do a video on this channel last week because I just couldn't. I mean, you heard about what's going on. The NBA boycotted, then finally all the other professional sports boycotted. And, you just have to say, it's just too much. I just can't focus. I didn't even really market or promote myself anywhere for days. I just didn't want to put anything up. If I already had something that was scheduled, I just let that be it. And, I can't necessarily afford as a, self-employed, solopreneur, if you will, not to promote myself. But I just couldn't do it. And in that way, I felt happier that I was self-employed because I'm imagining people who still had to go to work with everything else that was going on and work at a place where most of their coworkers could have cared less or couldn't have cared less because it wasn't going to affect them. How do I know that? Because I saw a lot of people writing that. I saw a lot of people asking that. There was one professional tennis player who said, I'm not talking about any of that because it has nothing to do with me. Sure, you're white. What does it have to do with you? You're now the #1 ranked tennis player in the world. You didn't care. And that just, it was irksome. But that was that. Then I got health issues. I'm not going to lie. I got certain health issues. Nothing overly big as far as I will say, but I got issues. You know, I've had trouble sleeping for over a year. I would wake up at 3, 4 in the morning after going to bed, maybe at midnight, and I would just be angry about something. Sometimes it was something that had nothing to do with me, nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. It didn't have anything to do with anything. It may have been something that I thought about from 30 years ago where, you know, people do this thing, I wish I had done this. Well, you know, there's nothing you can do about that. It was 30 years ago, but you wake up and now you can't get back to sleep. So I've always had this sleeping issue, and I have a CPAP. You know, I use a machine to help me breathe during the night, but I have issues. I'm diabetic, and I have problems with my feet. Now, my feet have basically been numb for, maybe 5 years or so. I can deal with the numbness, but now they're starting to, every once in a while, have tingle pain, or I should say needle pain, which means the neuropathy is getting worse. Even though I've got control over my diabetes now with the numbers, you know, this is what happens. Stuff happens when you have been in a place where you didn't have control for too long a period of time. You can stop stuff at a certain place, but you can't necessarily heal it. So this is one of those things I do. Yes, I walk a ton. Sometimes I walk 10 miles a day. Most of the time it's between 6 and 8 miles a day. But, you know, I still walk because I need to exercise. I have my eyes. That's how I found out I was diabetic, you know, because of my eyes. Or I was having vision trouble. Well, I've got this ophthalmologist basically saying within 4 years I'm probably going to need an operation for cataracts on my eyes. Even though I don't notice anything different, but you know what? He's got the machine up there and they're doing all this stuff. Luckily in 4 years I'll have Medicare, so it's not going to cost me what it would cost me to have it done any sooner. So, you got to hope for the best. I still have shoulder issues from the car accident that happened, oh God, when did that happen? That was a year and a half ago. That's right, that was last February. So I still have some shoulder issues from that. I've had a couple of cortisone shots which have helped to diminish it, but I'm better. And like I said, I still have some pain, but most of the pain I have now probably comes because I have to get Mom out of bed, which I didn't mention earlier. Mom is now scared to get out of bed, so she won't lean over on her own. Why is Mom scared? Because during that time period, when it was just us in the house, she would be waking up sometimes 1:30, 2 in the morning, after I'd just kind of gone to bed, and she would slide onto the floor. She didn't like plop on the floor, but she would sit on the edge of the bed, and then she would slide down, and she would end up on the floor, and I couldn't pick her up by myself. Not because I wasn't necessarily strong enough to do it, but there's this thing that, if you have children, you've probably seen this, but it doesn't work so well with adults, where they're rigid and they're fussing, but they're also limp. And so Mom would be all rigid, and I would get my hands around her, then she would go limp and just slide right through my arms. Nothing I could do except call for help. I've taken care of that issue, but in the mornings now, she will not get out of bed. I have to kind of get her to the edge of the bed, and then I have to lift her. I just have to lift her. Luckily, the way I do it, I'm not going to end up hurting my back, but, you know, my shoulder takes the hit a little bit. But at least she's not biting as much there. She's biting on the steps, but she's not biting elsewhere. I'll tell you, this ain't right. And then I got a bad finger. This finger here, I don't know why this finger is bad, but it hurts. It hurts bad. And I don't know if it's a bone issue or a tendon issue, but I don't want to go to the doctor for it. Isn't that a shame? I still have that issue. And the final issue I have is I have a hamstring issue. I don't know when that came about, but I have an issue. I'm moving in this chair right now. I'm trying not to move much. I move a lot. This is one of the reasons how come I probably walk so much in the house, is because I have to get up and walk because I have the hamstring issue pain. I'm starting to do more stretching now to try to, you know, overcome that, as well as certain other issues. And this is where I'm saying that, you know what, I had all that bad stuff that I talked about, but over the course of the last year, most of my videos have either been positive or they've been informative. I had a couple where I was angry about stuff, But in general, I'm putting out more positivity than negativity. Why? Because when I look at everything that I think has been bad, for the most part, I've had some pretty good stuff. I had a lot of friends who basically have come to help me in my time of need. I've had a lot of emotional support. I really appreciate that. I had some folks who have gone out and bought me food that I didn't ask for and brought me food, brought me desserts. Had some who sent me cookies and brownies. Like, thank you for that. You need boosts like that. I've gone through a lot of different motivational things. There's a lot of motivational videos on YouTube. There's a lot of podcasts you can listen to. I've read the books. And in general, I feel kind of good. Do I have the perfect life? No, but I don't have the worst life in the world. I'm lucky. I haven't had a relative that I know who has passed away in the last year and a half. I haven't had a friend that I know of who's passed away in the last year and a half. At my age, you know what? That's not bad. I did have both of my neighbors who were across the street. They were both in their mid-90s. Both of them passed away. But that's it. Actually, that's not it, because someone else moved into the house, another couple, and then he passed away a couple of months ago. But he'd had a heart problem, and I really never got to know him well. So I think that house is jinxed. I hope it's not this one. But you know what? I'm still putting stuff out. I have gotten a lot more publicity on LinkedIn than I ever thought. I just recently did a podcast with Mark Cardone and Theron Fight. I just mixed their names together. I did another interview with a young lady named Brandy Ann. You know what? I'm not even trying to do the last name again. I participated in a few other things. I think that I have not had the worst year ever. Yes, I've had some pressure. I've had to go through a little bit of depression. But I got more people who are watching here on YouTube. Like I said, I'm doing a lot better with LinkedIn promotions. Twitter, what you gonna do? So I say that because there are times where we think that everything is going bad. We think that, we're going to be in that spot forever. And it just feels like, we're never going to get out of the problems that we have. And unfortunately, for some people, that's a true thing. It never kind of goes away. It happened to Chadwick Boseman. I mean, he went through surgeries and he went through the chemotherapy. He did all that stuff. And in the end, colon cancer is a tough one to beat. But for most everybody else, you at least have a chance to do something to feel better, to make your life better. And, that's the thing that I'm going to stick by, is that if we can all find that thing that helps us to get by, someone to maybe talk to here and there, which I don't do a lot of, which I'm ashamed to say, but I really don't. But I do some. I interact with some people on social media, which is really helpful. I listen to my music. I do my walking. I will go and get food. I will order food. Now I can go to a few restaurants. You wear your mask in, then you take your mask off. That has helped on those days when mom is gone. So, like I said, you've got to find your thing. If you can walk somewhere, if you can talk to somebody, still be safe. Wear those masks when you have to. I'm seeing a lot more people not wearing masks. Don't take the chance. Don't fall for the hype. It's not getting better until we all come together to make it better. But, find something. I mentioned to someone a couple of days ago, I watch the movie The Secret probably once every 2 to 3 weeks. It makes me feel better. Find something. Anyway, that's what I got. My name is Mitch Mitchell. My life matters. Your life matters. Black lives matter. Let's try to make our lives feel like they matter. Y'all take care.